Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the One Hub Racing YouTube channel. It is the turn of the Pinnacle tier to take centre stage for round 3 around the legendary Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. My name is Jake, and as always, I'm joined by the fantastic Austin. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastically, Jake. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Of course, last time out, we can't forget we raced at the Circuit Paul Ricard, and in changeable conditions, we saw Louis produce a brilliant comeback to win after starting 16th on the grid, with Gil and Josh completing the podium and Compassion dropping to 4th after he did grab pole position. Just want to ask you, really, what was it that really caught your eye last week?
I have to say it was for the most part it really was Gil. We know how good Louis is, you know, from 16th on the grid to the win. We all know how good he is, but Gil, for someone who's a new driver, it was his second race ever in One Hub, and to produce these kinds of results, and seeing Gil in other leagues as well, he sort of builds a reputation, or has built a reputation at this point, as being an alternate strategy kind of guy. So he likes to go for the harder compound first, and then tries to get the positions in the race and do the overtakes, which is a very entertaining way of driving a race. Certainly makes for some great stuff to watch, but it's difficult strategy as well, because you have to make these overtakes, and I'm even more interested to see how he's going to handle that next week at Monaco, where we all know overtaking, yeah, that's a bit tricky around that track.
Oh, definitely. He's going to have to think about doing something different there for sure. In terms of how the last race has affected the Drivers' Championship, Louis now holds a 20-point lead over Gil, with Compassion a further 4 points behind. It's definitely fair to say that Louis is a man to beat, but who would you say is emerging as his closest challengers?
That's a good question. I think there are two drivers who are really lining themselves up. That would be Gil and Beastas. The one reason why I don't see Compassion in there, as good of a start as he had this season, is that he just dropped for today, for this race, all the assists. I don't know which ones he used before, but he's going full no assists, so absolutely nothing. It's going to be no traction control, no line, no nothing, no ABS, no really nothing, no assist whatsoever, and that's really tricky to make that move. I've seen, for example, Louis in fact struggle with that a little bit, because Louis is someone who uses the racing line a lot. And that's his only assist. Everything else he doesn't use, but it does make a difference for Louis. I've seen it time and time again. And for someone to absolutely drop all assists, that's a big step. So I think Compassion is going to have some teething issues early on. But Gil and Beastas, I mean, Beastas is a 2-time Drivers' Champion, 1-time Constructors' Champion. He is, at this point, One Hub Racing royalty, who decided to return to the promised land, basically. And Gil, as I said, only 2 races, but P4, P2. You can't ask for a much better start in the highest tier of One Hub Racing.
And I wanted to actually mention that in regards to Compassion, because that is a massive thing he's done there, deciding to change to no assists. Are you a little bit surprised that he's made this decision 3 races into a season? Are you a little bit surprised he didn't do this at the start?
Not really, to be honest, because you want to get familiar with the game at first, and then over time, you know, the more you get familiar with the game, because you got to remember, this is a new season on a new game. And at that point, you want to get familiar with the game at first, and then if you feel comfortable, then you can start turning off assists one by one. And I think that's the route that he's taking, and I think it makes sense.
So we're just loading up for qualifying now, and coming on to our venue for tonight, we're of course racing at the legendary Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, deep in the Ardennes Forest. It's the longest track on the calendar at a whopping 4.3 miles. We've got 19 corners to make up this track, 10 to the left and 9 to the right. And an interesting statistic about this track, only this and Silverstone have appeared in every season of One Hub. So it's clearly a very popular track for everyone, really. Pinnacle drivers Westy and Slash actually consider this to be one of their favourite tracks. So I guess I'll ask you, in your view, what is it about Spa that makes it one of the most beloved venues on the calendar?
I think there are a lot of things that play into it. For one, it's a track that has a lot of history. It's a track that was part of the original, the first ever F1 World Championship in 1950. So it's been on the... And obviously it was a very different track back then, but, you know, parts of that old track still exist, obviously. So that plays into it. It's also a very fast track. You have the Kemmel Straight, you have, in general, very high speeds around this track. You have, as much as you have 19 corners, you only have a few really heavy braking zones. Obviously, Les Combes would be one into turn 5, and then 6 and 7 at the bus stop chicane would be another. Even La Source you can count as one. But apart from that, it's a very flowing track. You know, it's easy to get into a rhythm here. And then the one thing you can't forget is obviously the challenge of Eau Rouge, which unfortunately on these cars isn't as much of a challenge anymore, but it still has that sort of reputation, and going through it and up the hill towards Raidillon, it's just a different feeling.
It's certainly one of a kind, this racetrack. You certainly can't get this sort of feel from any other track in the world. And how much is it difficult to set your car up for this track? Because you've also mentioned that we do have a lot of high speed areas to this track, but you've also got to make sure you can wrestle it around this difficult middle sector as well. So how difficult is it to find a compromise on the setup?
I don't think it's too difficult. The most important thing you're going to play around with are obviously the front and rear wing settings. And I think it's quite easy to find a compromise. What might be a bit more interesting is the ratio between the front and the rear wing. Some drivers are probably going to go rather even. Those are the ones that sort of run the Michael Schumacher style of driving, where they want a lot of oversteer because they can control it. And then you have other drivers who like maybe a bit more of a stable car, not an understeery car, but certainly a more stable and more planted car, and they're going to go for a bit less front wing and a bit more rear wing, so they get that traction, and that car is a bit more planted and doesn't just start spinning and flying around anywhere and everywhere. So I think that's more of the key to this track than the balance between the long straights and the fast corners.
And in terms of overtaking spots, of course, we've got down along Kemmel Straight is probably the most favoured overtaking spot, especially with the slipstreaming effect you get at the start of the race. You've also got down into La Source to turn 1. There's plenty of overtaking spots around this track, and I guess that's another thing that makes it so popular with drivers, is that, you know, you're not... If you've had a bad qualifying, or if you're stuck behind somebody, there are plenty of places to overtake, and you can't always guarantee that at some racing tracks, especially now we do have this wider generation of cars.
Yeah, certainly. One thing to note here is that basically
Sorry, Skeevan just span off at Pouhon then on his first lap. That is definitely one of the key tests of this track. We've seen it over the past, so many drivers lose it through there, and that, for me now, although Rouge is the most famous corner, I'd argue now Pouhon's definitely the most challenging.
Certainly, yes. Eau Rouge, as famous as it is on these cars, as I said before, not really that tricky. Pouhon, it really depends on the setup, and that's the one corner, sort of the landmark corner of this track, where you that's the one that you use to set your car up the right way. You want to be able to take Pouhon basically flat in qualifying. In the race, you accept that early on in the race you're gonna have to lift through there, but in qualifying, you want to be able to take that corner flat out, or almost flat out, maybe a slight minimal lift, just very short, very briefly, and carry as much speed as possible through there, because then you get the run to turn 12 to the campus section there, and that's quite a bit of a run there. That's quite some meters you're making there, and you want as much speed as possible into that section.
So the first few laps are coming in qualifying. We've got Zach currently on pole on a 1:40.9, with the 2 Racing Points behind in the low 41s, and Racing Points have faced some stern questions in the team's conference this week with accusations of copying the Mercedes car. How do you think that might affect them going into this race?
I think the accusation of them copying the Mercedes is just absolutely ludicrous. I mean, there's nothing that is similar on these two cars, obviously. There's absolutely no basis that the Racing Point could be called something like, I don't know, the pink Mercedes or something. It's absolutely ludicrous. No, I'm joking, of course. The accusation is perfectly justified, but at the same time, I think it's smart. You look at the winning car from last season, and clearly they must have done something right. So why not go and copy it? Why not go, all right, they're doing something right, let's try the same thing. Surely it's going to yield results. And I mean, we've seen so far in real F1 for sure, and also here, that it does yield results. The Racing Point, it's not really a bad car, is it?
No, definitely not. And in terms of, as well, their driver lineup for this evening, of course, Josh got a podium last time out at France, and Westy has won at this race before in one hub. So both these drivers are coming into this surely with high on confidence, and for someone like Westy who's won here before, this has got to be one of the most satisfying wins, because you've got so many different elements. The track is incredibly long. You've got, obviously around here you can never predict what the weather's going to be like as well. So for me, this would surely be one of the most satisfying tracks to get a win around.
Oh, certainly, because the challenge is quite a different one to most other tracks. It's so long. It's kind of comparable if you think about it. Let's take the shortest track on the calendar, Monaco. We're going to do 39 laps around there next week. You see the same corners over and over and over and over again. Here, it's 22 laps. It's just over half the laps, meaning as much as you run through Saint-Devote 39 times, you only run through La Source, through Eau Rouge, through Les Combes 22 times. So every single time that you do run through one of these corners, it just makes it that much more important.
A nice lap time there from Glock, who's just dropped it into P3. I wanted to touch on McLaren actually briefly. They're actually the only team in the Pinnacle tier that have yet to pick up a point in the Constructors' Championship. Now, I don't know, for me anyway, personally, I'm a little bit surprised about that, because Glock was certainly a driver I fancied doing quite well this season, and Slash is no slouch either. Does that surprise you that they've yet to pick up any points at all?
I have to say yes. Slash has come close in the season opener around Zandvoort, finishing P11. As Josh picks up a 5-place grid penalty for a collision that's in Eau Rouge with Cliffy, I think that was. So the Racing Point and the Williams have come together, and that Racing Point is going to get a 5-place grid penalty. Back to the point, yeah, they've been close. Slash P11, P13. He qualified P9 in France. He had the opportunity there, but it wasn't meant to be. Everyone moved up positions almost. I mean, we had, if you look at last week, we had Larkin who gained 7 places starting from P15. We had Westy who gained 5 places starting from P10. And then you see Slash, who lost 4 positions and was the last of the finishers. Surely there is some potential in that McLaren that just hasn't been unleashed yet.
And like I said, gaining positions at the start is so important. We talk about sometimes how important track position can be, but if you lose that in the first lap, it's almost like all that qualifying work's undone. So a good start is absolutely key, and that's undoubtedly something that Slash will want to work on. Thinking about the incident between Josh and Cliffy just briefly as well, I wonder what happened there, because I went with Cliffy and he was in minus a front wing, so I don't know if Cliffy's gone into the back of Josh, but It's an odd one, but it's ultimately it's one penalty that you can't really do anything about. Josh has just got to sort of move with it. He's currently P3, but that's going to drop down. And of course, I believe, I'm definitely right in saying this, if he does qualify, I don't know, let's say 6th or 7th, even though he'll be starting outside the top 10, he'll still have to start on those tyres he qualified on. So it's kind of it's a double whammy in effect.
Yeah, it really is. At this point, if I was Josh, I'd probably just stop trying and hope that I fall outside the top 10, and maybe just prepare for one last run right at the end in case that I do not fall out of the top 10, because if you don't fall out of the top 10 in that situation, then you really want the highest grid position possible and have that last final run. But he seems to just continue on and try to still set a lap time. 1 minute 41.1 right now is already pretty good. I expect the ultimate pole time at the end of the session to be around 1 minute 40.7. So we're already kind of there, 2/10 off. But we can certainly get there. I mean, Zach in time trial posted a 1 minute 40.6. So he's certainly capable of some faster times, but at the same time, qualifying is not always the same as time trial. So we'll see how he gets on with it.
It's very funny you mention that, actually, because Zach might just be about to do a time that's very akin to his time trial lap. He's going quicker than his previous attempt, and he does indeed do a 140.6 right on cue. Just as you mentioned it, he finds that time trial lap, and that's going to take some beating, surely. And I have to say, that's a great lap time for Midnight as well, making his 50th one-hub appearance tonight. Pops it into second, ahead of Gil. I wouldn't have predicted that.
Yeah, well, that's certainly surprising, but at the same time, Midnight is someone who you always have to keep an eye on. The man finished in the top 3 of the tier he was in one-hub in the last 4 seasons. In each of them, he was in the top 3. He was 2nd, 3rd, 3rd, and 3rd. And in 3 of those 4 seasons, he was in the top tier. So he's certainly one of one-hub's best. And he had a horrible start to the season. His first time this season that he had 2 DNFs in a row. Didn't have that in all of his one-hub career. In fact, he only has 5 DNFs to date. He's finished 44 of his races, 44 of them in the points. And it was just that those 2 races and then 3 more races in the last 4 seasons that he didn't finish, as Compassion has retired from the session. So he was from almost the very back of the grid. In fact, if Konzo and Cliff, if Konzo can improve and Cliffy can set a lap time that's better than a 41.7, they will both jump him and he will start from P17.
And of course, as we touched on earlier, he's running no assist tonight, so maybe didn't actually know what happened to him, so I don't know if he did actually crash somewhere or if he's just retired. But either way, it's not the qualifying he would have had in mind. But interestingly, at the moment, Louis only in P6. He's very close in that pack, very congested. Actually, very impressed with the lap time. It's just coming from Lakitu, who's popped it up into P3. He's not someone we've really seen towards the sharp end too often. But that's a great lap time in there, and backing up what his teammates done.
Yeah, well, it needs to be said about Lakitu. He's been with one-hub for a couple seasons now, and he's been on the podium 5 times. He's never won, but he's been on the podium 5 times. He's scored over 200 points. He's been in the points 28 out of his 33 finishes, so he's been here for a while. He's had really good results. He's just never had that moment where he was the number 1, but he certainly has a lot of pace in him, and we see it here again. And considering that he only was in one of the 2 races so far this season, he missed the French Grand Prix last week, and he finished P8 at the Dutch Grand Prix. I think he's got a very good chance of getting some more points here tonight for Haas.
All the best to him. Louis about to improve and go second, just 11 thousandths of a second behind Zach. That's incredibly tight at the front. Great effort there from Louis to pop it onto the front row, and those 2 look incredibly quick at the moment, it has to be said. I was actually going to mention as well, I wonder if, this could be just a wrong theory I've come up with, but everyone is qualifying on the soft tyre. Now, to me, that suggests to me we could be expecting rain at the start of the race. Is that...
No.
No, not what
no. No, absolutely not. You got to remember, One Hub has the mandatory 2-stop rule, and the tires around here definitely, most definitely last long enough for. I mean, all they have to last is 6 laps, really, for them to be some sort of viable, and they last around 9 laps. You could actually, if the mandatory 2-stop wasn't in place here in One Hub, you could do a 1-stop soft to medium around here. But because we have the 2-stop to, you know, give you viewers some more excitement, and it certainly has made the races more exciting, the 2-stop is going to be soft medium for sure for all drivers. There's no tire temperature issues either. The temperatures of the tires are definitely well within the working range of the tires, and they don't overheat around here. So no, the tires are going to be fine. Everyone's going to qualify on the softs because that's the fastest tire, and if they don't qualify inside the top 10, we might see them on the mediums, but I'm not sure that that's an indication that rain is coming. I'm not saying rain is definitely not coming. I'm just saying the soft tires are not an indication that it will be raining.
I don't think you can ever quite rule out Spa at 100%, rain at Spa.
Exactly.
100%. What I would mention as well, and he's probably not going to thank me for saying this if he's watching, but in the prospect tier earlier, Cloudy Balloons, who finished 3rd, actually forgot about the mandatory 2-stop rule, and he realised about 10 seconds after the race finished. So it shows how easy it is to do. Like, this is, of course, is a very unique rule to One Hub, and even for those experienced, it can be easy to just forget it sometimes.
Yeah. We've seen it last season in the Precision tier twice over the span of 3 races, where first it was Carlsberg who forgot it in France, and then 2 races later it was Cam Kamon who forgot it as well. So very, very unfortunate set of circumstances for those. So obviously, if you do forget, you will get disqualified. That is a rule that has to be adhered to. It's like forgetting to use 2 different tire compounds. As if you were to run soft, great, you adhered to the mandatory 2-stop, but you forgot the 2 different tire compounds in the race, and then you would be disqualified as well. As Louis, meanwhile, has retired, I think he's content with P2, and I think we may have our fight, we may have our battle, and we may have that one driver that could bring the fight to Louis in IGK Zag, the fastest driver on qualifying night. The only one in the 1 minute 24 is not even Louis was able to do that around Bahrain. I think Louis may have found his master.
And Louis clearly thinking that that was the most he could get out of it. I mean, of course, a 140.6, as you mentioned earlier, was up there with the best time trial lap, so it's astonishing effort from both of them there. And I'm just actually watching Midnight at the moment, see if he can pop anything out of the bag, because now it's a case of, is there anyone from 3rd downwards that can maybe shock Zach or Louis here, because there is a bit of a gap at the moment. Oh, and that would not have been ideal for Midnight into Puon. There was is that Skeevan? Beasthouse, he just retired.
He retired on track. That is an absolute no-no around here. He should not have done that. If you retire, you should retire in the pit lane and not on track. So that really put Midnight's lap in massive danger there. And thankfully no coming together between the two as Midnight now approaches the bus stop chicane.
I have to say, I was on board with Midnight there, and there was no hesitation on the throttle, which you couldn't have blamed him if there was. So he's actually still slightly up on the time he did before. I don't think it's going to be enough for the front row. It's not, but it's still an improvement to a 140.8, and considering the issue he had there, I think that's a very fine effort. As Josh actually just goes into 3rd, just 6 thousandths quicker than Midnight. So the battle's still up there. What's Gil doing at the moment? He's on a personal best. Westy's improved to 5th as well. This is a dramatic end to the qualifying session, and Gil here could have enough to get himself into 3rd. Has he done enough? Yes, he has. He goes 3rd. 140.7. This was such a long circuit. This is incredibly close.
Yeah, Glock comes across the line. P6.
P6. Very nice effort from him as well.
I think that's it.
Slash.
Everyone else has either invalidated or is already
Slash is invalidated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slash. Those 12th, and yeah, to say for such a long circuit, the lap times are incredibly close. I actually think they're closer than what they were last week, which is slightly bizarre.
It's not really bizarre if you think about the... I thought about this earlier because everyone thinks, oh, it's the longest track, therefore the gaps have to be the biggest. Not really true. In fact, the gaps around a track like Monaco or Vietnam are going to be bigger than they are here because you have that few real, I would say, not braking zones, but at least you have to lift, let's say that. So it's not fully flat out. What do you have here? You have turn 1. Eau Rouge is flat, so that doesn't count. You have Les Combes as one sort of section of corners. You have turn 8, Bruxelles. You have turn 9, no-name corner, where you have to slightly lift at least. Pujon, you have to lift at least in the race. When qualifying, not really. Campus section, Stavelot, and bus stop chicane. That's it. There's not that much where you can lose or gain time. Whereas in Monaco, you have turn 1. You have the left up the hill. You have the right up the hill. You have the upper Mirabeau. You have the hotel hairpin. You have the lower Mirabeau. You have the one that leads into the tunnel, the right-hander. You have the chicane, the Nouvelle chicane. You have the left-hander, the fast left-hander right after. You have the harbour chicane. You have Rascas. You have so much there. And the last one, the last corner as well. You have so many corners there where you can gain or lose time. Plus the walls are closed as well. You don't want to end up in there. So Monaco, we're going to see much bigger gaps next week. This one here is really, really close because you have a track where the walls aren't closed, and you have a track where you don't have that many either braking zones or at least corners where you have to lift.
No, that's very true. And going into this race, there's a lot of drivers here that might fancy their chances of an excellent result based on how close it was. Just a very quick thank you to one of our sponsors, Liam13, who's actually sponsoring the trophies this year. Of course, the trophies that these drivers will be competing for. So a massive thank you to him for that. That's worth a mention.
Yeah, and thank you very much as well to Next Level Racing, our other sponsor, who are going to be... I can't even speak anymore. Who are going to be providing a wheel stand to the winner of the Going Gets Tough Award, which rewards a driver who has participated and finished in every race, plus done all their media day appearances, pre-race pre-race interviews, post-race interviews, drivers' press conferences, all that stuff. Driver of the Day press conferences, a new addition to One Hub this year. And it seems like everyone waited for... Did everyone wait for the lobby host to ready up? I don't know.
I believe so.
I think the lobby host... No, although I think the lobby host is Matt. Although Skeven is showing on top. So I don't know what's going on right now, but it's a very tricky situation this time around. So I don't really know who's going to be penalized for that, if anyone. It's because Samsa, who is usually the lobby host and the tier coordinator, is not able to make it tonight, and so it's all got a bit it's all got a bit crazy. So I don't know if anyone will be penalized for it, but I think they waited long enough, to be quite honest with you.
I think it was all good, and of course we saw at the opening round especially that the drivers were very good when it came to that. So I don't imagine there was too many problems there. Heading into the race then, drivers outside the top 10. Everyone apart from Matt and Harry have gone for the mediums. Matt and Harry have gone for the softs. And like you said, with the tyre wear being such a premium here, I wouldn't expect to see the hard tyre in use very often, if at all.
The only situation I can imagine where it could happen, I mean, look at the skies. We could see the intermediate or the full wet tyre before we see the hards. The only thing I can imagine where we could see the hards if there are 2 safety car periods in the first sort of 6 laps. So if we get a safety car period on lap 1, then it stays out, comes back in lap 3, and then we get another safety car period, then we could see the hards. But even then, maybe the mediums are probably the better tyre, even at that point. Lifespan of the mediums is around 14 laps, so if you run under the safety car, obviously there's no tyre, or not much tyre wear. There is tyre wear still, but the cars are so slow. there isn't much tire wear, and it's very negligible. But that's sort of the only situation where I can expect the hards to come out, and again, even then, the mediums might be the better choice.
Yeah, the medium tyre are quite a versatile tyre to use around here. In terms of a grid, of course, Josh with his 5th-place grid drop has dropped from 4th to 9th, meaning it's an all Red Bull lockout on the second row. I'm sure Christian Horner will be very happy with that, and Midnight, of course, will be hoping to score some points on his 50th one-hub appearance. The driver's just coming up now to the bus stop chicane. The formation lap has nearly been completed, and we've got 22 laps ahead of us here. And who knows, with a look at the skies, maybe there is some rain to interfere later on. But it's dry for the moment.
Like it. Yeah, it certainly looks like it. I mean, the skies are very, very dark around here. And it could always happen. I mean, this is, after all, this is the Ardennes Forest. Rains a lot here. Belgian Grand Prix infamous for that. And we'll see whether rain will play a role in this race as well.
Right, here we go then. The lights are coming on. 22 laps of the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps is underway now. It looks like a pretty good start from Zach, it has to be said. Off the line, Louis going to the outside of La Source. Is he going to try and make it stick? He might be better off waiting for the Kemmel straight with the toe that he's got. It looks like Zach's kept the lead well, and in fact, Gil is putting Louis under pressure and might be able to get him coming into a rouge. He has, so Gil up to 2nd. Louis is 3rd, and I believe that's Glock, who is up to 4th, so it's a good start from him as well. Further down the field, we've already got a yellow flag in Sector 1. I don't know what's happened there. Maybe Matt at the back, unfortunately. We now got Gil. Is he going to attack Zach into here? No, he's not. But he's under pressure, in fact, from Louis, who's coming back at him. Louis down the inside. Gil goes wide and, in fact, loses more positions to Glock, and he's now got his teammate Midnight to worry about as well. So Gil has made a crucial error there and has dropped a few positions as a two.
Oh, spin!
Spin!
Slash!
Slash has gone as well.
Fun.
There's the 2 racing points we're going side by side. Slash is down at the back. That's all gone wrong for him. And disastrous start. Has Slash got damage?
No, not from what I could see. No, he doesn't. Absolutely 0 damage for him. Which, you know, he got away with one there. But he did get spun. I think there was some contact with, I think it may have been either Beast or Larkin, somewhere around P10, P11, that sort of range. And yeah, that was very unfortunate, as now I see Harry and Compassion here going side by side through the second part of Stevelo. But yeah, no damage for Slash, thankfully. And meanwhile, let's see, everyone's staying out, so no one has any damage. No, Skeeben's coming in.
I wondered then, the 2 Ferraris were going side by side for Blanchimon, and it looked like Skeeven.
And retires.
Skeeven's retired. That's an interesting decision. It says de-ice enabled. I hope we can ignore that because it's only lap 2. But yeah, that's very strange. I mean, even if he's got front wing damage, there's still a chance of a safety car, especially around here. So yeah, but Skeeven's race unfortunately has come to an early end. As we go down the Kemmel straight again now with 2 Red Bulls and Racing Points line astern. Meanwhile, at the front, it's still Zach leading Louis. Glock up to 3rd. He'll be absolutely chuffed to bits with that start we mentioned before. McLaren have not scored any points coming into this, as in fact we've got Josh trying to get down the inside of Gil. The 2 podium finishers from Paul Ricard going side by side. Coming up to the corner with no name. Who's going to be the braver? Gil tries to stay on the inside, pushes Josh a little bit wide, and now Josh is going to be under threat from his teammate Westy into Pouon. This is going to be a brave move if he can make this stick. Fair play, they go side by side from there without contact, and they're still alongside each other, and it looks like it's Josh in the end who just keeps a spot ahead of Westy. But yeah, that was incredible racing there between the pair of them. Fair play for keeping it clean. And there's a Haas in the background there, Lakitu, who's made a mistake, and he's managed to recover it, but he's lost a few positions because of that. So Lakitu drops outside the points, but an absolutely manic start to the race.
Yeah, certainly, and it's something that Belgium always provides. Meanwhile, it looks like the skies are actually opening up a little bit. It got brighter. The sun is coming out a little bit as the top two are trading fastest laps right now. Zach was the first one. Then it was Louis. Now the DRS is actually enabled. And here is the detection point. Louis is going to come across it right now. It's right below that banner there, that Fly Emirates banner. And Louis will have the DRS, and I think Glock will... Oh, Glock will as well. Glock was just inside that 1 second window, just inside that 1 second gap. Louis, however, decides not to really go for it, not to try anything just yet. And once again, that's how you know they're thinking strategically. Louis wants to get away from everyone else together with Zach and then make it a two-way battle in the last couple of laps.
That Glock DRS was absolutely pivotal. Not so much to getting up to Louis, but more to keeping Midnight behind him. But I've got to say, very impressive from Glock at the start of this race, and he's keeping pace with the top two very well here. And like you say, these two will all, Zach and Louis, will want to make it a fight between them, but there's no doubt about it, the drivers behind them will have other ideas.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for the top four. Oh, Gil! Oh, boy. Gil with a massive slide there on the second part of Stavilo. That is turn 15. Usually a flat-out corner, but in a car that's full of fuel, can get a little bit tricky. And you saw the oversteer there, as now we have Louis with the undercut of the century. Lap 3, that is early. The pit window for the soft runners, I expect it to be around lap 5.
And he's not the only one. Josh has come into the pits as well, so they're both trying a massive undercut here. And now, I guess he's posing that question in Zach's mind. What does Zach do now? Does he cover Louis off? Does he extend the stint? Zach's got to be caught in two minds now, surely.
Yeah, I think at this point the softs are still better. I think here the overcut really is the better call, because the difference between the softs and the mediums over one lap, fresh tires each, is around 0.6. The softs, since the start, I don't think they've lost 0.6 out of them just yet. I think at this point the softs are probably still a 1/10 or 2 quicker than those fresh mediums. And at this point, I would probably stay out if I was Zach and maybe come in lap 5, make it a... Because usually the... I would say the perfect strategy, if you are starting on fresh tires, obviously Zach doesn't, would be to come in lap 6 if you're on the softs. So I would say Zach should come in lap 5, maybe even now lap 4, make it 1 lap shorter, and try to cover that off. At that point, he's still got the advantage over Louis. Plus, Louis is in traffic, and there you go. Zach does come in indeed, and Glock follows him in. So is Gil. Midnight stays out. Will assume the lead.
It's almost like Louis' early pit stop has almost triggered the rest of them into action. It's like you say, we weren't really expecting pit stops until around lap 5, but nearly everyone's come in now, so they're all trying to cover each other off, and it's going to be interesting to see if Zach does get out in front of Louis. He should still have the advantage, will he? It's going to be pretty, yeah, actually quite comfortably, actually. He's probably slightly further ahead than he was, and even better for him, there's a car between them as Westy has lost connection, unfortunately, so that's a real blow for him. But yeah, crucially for Zach, there's a car between him and Louis, and he'll be hoping that Slash can do him a favour and hold Louis up a little bit.
Yeah, right now it's not really working in Zach's favour because Slash just gave Louis some DRS, so that really did not help. But as Westy rejoins, Louis is going to have to clear Slash here. He's going to have to get past at some point, and if he doesn't, Slash certainly is not at a point with his medium tires that are 4 laps older now than the medium tires of Zach and Louis. He's got slower tires, plus he's been slower in qualifying and in the in the leaderboards as well. Not by much, actually. Slash's fastest time in the leaderboards was a 1 minute 40.8, so only 2/10 off. But considering that his qualifying was suboptimal to say the least, qualifying in P12, even though he had the 4th best time trial lap time. So maybe he's got the race pace though.
Midnight's pits, and I'll be interested to see where he rejoins. Beastas continues now, so he's the only one who started on soft, so he's still out there. Midnight might not lose out too much here. He was just ahead of his teammate Gil at the time of pitting, so it'll be interesting to see where he comes out. Obviously Glock and Gil are pretty much together now, so where is Midnight going to rejoin in amongst that, I wonder?
Oh, there he is. Oh, just ahead of Gil, but Gil has the run. However, it's going downhill, meaning the acceleration is a bit higher thanks to gravity, and Midnight keeps the position. And they both get DRS because Midnight was close enough to to Glock, sorry.
Is Gil going to have a look though at the end of a Kemmel straight? He's all going to move alongside him, goes down the inside into the corner. He's made the move stick, so Gil slightly more up to temperature tyres, and he's got the move done, and he'll try and hold on to that position, but also try and get after Glock as well. Gil qualified really well, but has had a difficult start, but he's coming back into this now, and that was an important move on Midnight there, because it also means when it comes to the second round of stops, he should have first preference.
Yeah, that's something that's very crucial. In between teammates, you always want to be the first one. And there was a question in the pre-race interviews about some drivers and whether they are in a party with their teammates. And funny enough, we didn't get any answers from the Red Bull guys, so we don't know. But from some other teams, we did get a response. It was from one Cliffy in the Williams who said that he's in a party with his teammate, which would be BDG Louis. So they're talking apparently. We also have the Alfa Romeos, obviously Estella Hamilton not here tonight, and Harry therefore basically alone, I would assume. Maybe he has someone to talk to, but it's certainly not his teammate. And then we also had the Racing Point of Josh, or Westy mentioning that he's in a party with Josh, and so that certainly can play into this whole thing as we see Josh in P11 and Westy now in the pit lane in P15 and retiring after having some connection issues. He dropped out once during qualifying, came back in, and then he dropped out once again, and now he just retires. Very unfortunate for him, connection issues, not much he can do about it. Very, very unfortunate for him.
Oh, and just saw there Glock move past his teammate Slash. I wonder if that was probably orchestrated by McLaren there, as Glock weaves coming down to the hairpins. I wonder if he'll struggle to get temperature into those medium tyres. But he's up to 7th place now. So also saw Zach pass, and is one of our race premium members. So thank you to him for that. And it seems at the moment like it's not working out too well for Compassion, but of course when you do start to run no assist for the first time, it does take a little while to get up to speed. But ultimately it could have turned out to be a good move, and he might end up even faster than he was before.
Yeah, that's the hope at least, and it's been proven time and time again that once you get used to that and you really, you know, get a feel for it, it's the same as switching from a controller to a wheel. At first you're going to be slower, but once you're used to it, once you have the practice, once you have the experience, that's when you will get slower. You lower the floor, but you also raise the ceiling.
And that's it'll be short-term pain for Compassion, but he'll hope over the coming weeks that it pays out for him. And of course he was already very quick anyway, so if he can find that extra little bit of speed, that could take him up to the real sharp end of the grid with Louis and Zach. There's an interesting battle developing here between Slash, Gil and Midnight, and I get the feeling with just the behaviour of Midnight's car, but he's not exactly content being sat behind his teammate. So I get this feeling this Red Bull rivalry is far from over. And in fact, he's very close to him here, Midnight. Is he going to go for a move into the com? No, he's not. Yeah, Midnight definitely not settling to just be behind his teammate. He wants to get past. And Gil, again, if there's one car for me that's looked a little bit unsettled, it is Gil's car. It looks a little bit more twitchy than he would like.
Yeah, it could be a setup thing, as I talked about earlier. Maybe his setup is more towards that sort of oversteer than the others. Ultimately, I don't know, but certainly seems like his car is twitching a little bit more than the others, and I reckon it will cost. Oh, his slash goes deep into turn 12 there. That really will hurt him, and that will leave the opportunity there for Gil. Wants to go around the outside of Sabalo. That wasn't there. Now, he's too close. He doesn't get a run at this point. He's too close. Although, he just gets out of the slipstream. They're side by side. Thankfully, Blanchimont now a corner where you can run side by side, but Slash pulls out of that one. And Midnight now tries to make it 2 for 1 here for the Red Bulls, and Slash, yeah, he has to pull out of this one, has to brake a bit earlier because of his older tires.
That was beautifully choreographed there by the Red Bulls, and they've both managed to get that overtake done, and they can set off back after Glock, who I've already noticed has picked up a few penalties already, so he will potentially lose a few spots at the end if he keeps that up. We've got Cliffy and Compassion both in the pits for soft tyres. The sensible thing to do, of course, if you can run a set of softs and a set of mediums in the first 2 stints, it gives you that freedom for the final stint.
Yeah, indeed. That's why you've seen all the drivers who started on the softs go on to the mediums for their second stint. So they have the opportunity, if there is, for example, a safety car coming out around lap 10, lap 11, then they can go on to another set of mediums, because the softs wouldn't make it most likely, and the mediums would be the better choice at that point. They can go on to another set of mediums, make it to the end, and do not have to worry about, oh, I can't pit under the safety car, I have to wait. No, they can come in, put on another set of mediums, and make it to the end. So we see this right here, and with the medium runs, those who started on the mediums, at that point it's a very clear choice. Obviously you're gonna go for 2 stints on soft, so they don't really have much of a choice unless, again, there's some sort of safety car, virtual safety car, that helps them out a little bit. But in any other situation, if there is green flag running from beginning to end, you're going to have to go from the mediums to 2 stints of softs. Otherwise, you're just wasting time.
Oh, and Larkin. So both the Alpha Tauris have the only ones yet to stop. And Larkin's actually just come into the pits now. So they've obviously started on the medium tyres, run quite deep into the race, and they should be able to run softs, 2 sets of softs from here on out to Slash. Also pits. It hasn't quite worked out as well for him. He has dropped down the field a little bit more. It'd be interesting to see where he rejoins. It's going to be somewhere around, I reckon, where Matt is.
Larkin onto mediums again. That is a questionable move.
Now, we know sometimes you can, on this game, you can not get the tyres that you want, so I wonder if that's one of those instances where he perhaps wanted the softs and he hasn't been given them, because that does seem like a bit of an odd decision. I mean, it doesn't even fit in with if you've forgotten about a 2-stop, 1-hub rule, yeah, because he wouldn't go for mediums again anyway, because he'd have to run 2 different sets of tyres. So that for me must be a mistake somewhere.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, at this point, he came in lap 9. Is he going to come in lap 17 and then 5 on the softs? You can take these mediums. That's what I'm surprised by. You can take these mediums around. I mean, the lifespan is 14 laps. Obviously, you don't want to, because you're on a mandatory 2-stop anyway, and it's better to go for 2 stints of 6 laps on the softs, which they can easily do, and then a 10 lap stint on the mediums. But I do not understand this one from Larkin there. Unless he has some sort of trouble with the tire temperatures, which, again, I find highly unlikely, but possible, as Konzo now comes in as well. And let's see what he does. I wonder.
Softs, yes.
So it's only Larkin. It's only Larkin. Everyone else has already fulfilled the criterion of 2 different compounds. Obviously, none of them have done the 2 stops yet, but everyone else has done the soft to medium or medium to soft so far, and they all just have to pit once more, and they can choose which tire they want. Most of them are going to go for the softs for sure, but maybe some of them are going to go for the medium. Certainly Larkin won't. As we said, he will go for the softs because he has to.
Well, we talked earlier about Louis and how he would want to make this into almost a personal duel between him and Zach, but I have to say at the moment, if anything, he's coming under more threat from Glock. Glock was only 3/10 behind him at the end of the Kemmel Straight last time around, and again, the only thing Glock needs to watch out for is the penalties he seems to be collecting. But he's right there with Louis, putting pressure on him. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 2.
Compassion. Yeah.
Compassion is out the race, and could that be a safety car potentially?
No. The car is still driving, and it will retire at some point. We'll just drive off the track. That was a normal retirement, basically, just on track. He kind of had enough, I guess. Did not feel it or something. Maybe he got some damage before, but the car was still driving. He wasn't completely stranded with, with a crash. And so there will not be a safety car. In fact, the car has now completely disappeared, has been cleaned, and the full track is green again.
That's a real shame for Compassion, of course. We know, obviously, the change to no assist and everything, but coming into this race, he'd had a first, a second, a third, and a fourth at one hub in his 4 starts, and unfortunately, that has brought an end to that nice little pattern he had developing there. As
yeah,
Matt...
really a shame. For rookie to start off like that. At some point it had to happen that he had to get his first retirement, and unfortunately it was the race where he decided to go for no assists. I wonder, that's the real question I'm thinking about right now. Is he going to go back to whatever assists he had before Belgium, or is he going to stick with the no assists? Because obviously having assists, as we saw in the first 4 races of his one-hub career, worked out quite well. A P1, a P2, a P3, and a P4. What more can you ask for? And then the one race where he suddenly turned to no assists turned into a retirement after half the race.
I'm going to say, I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but that was a fantastic rhyme you did there in the middle of that.
That was not intentional. That was absolutely not intentional.
Cliffy then, someone who hasn't had the best of starts to this season. Coming into this race, he was hoping that he could get in the points, but wasn't too high on confidence based on how it had gone so far. But he's doing a good job at the moment. He's putting a lot of pressure on Beasthouse, who of course got a brilliant second at the opening round at Holland. So Cliffy's having a much better race here so far, and he's looking to shape up and move on the Ferrari driver into the bus stop chicane, but he opts better of it, maybe decides the Kemmel Straight's a better opportunity, and in fact he hits after just 2 laps on the soft tyre, so...
3 laps. As soon as he comes across the line, it will be 3.
3, yeah.
But, yeah, that's surprising. Did not expect him to come in that early. Is he going to go into mediums as well? Does he also not like the softs around here?
I wonder, that's the only thing I was perhaps thinking there. A driver's just not liking the soft tyres in these conditions. Are the medium tyres proving to be a better race tyre, I wonder?
It could be due to the temperatures on track now, because obviously it has gotten a lot sunnier since the start. And if we look at the track temperature, it is sitting at a nice 27 degrees. The air temperature is only 18, but the track temperature is at 27. So maybe that's enough for the drivers to go off the softs and just like the mediums a bit more.
Say Zach's doing a cracking job up front. He's controlled the gaps at 2.5 seconds at the moment. It's still very, very close in this race. We've got just over 5 seconds separating the top 6, which is incredible, and you wouldn't want to call this race either way. One thing I have noticed though is that Midnight to me looks like a slightly quicker Red Bull driver. He's been sort of around Gil for a while now, and I don't know if he does touring a party together. Of course we don't know that information. But if they are, I wonder if Midnight is almost wanting to suggest, you know, could you move over?
See, I don't think that's going to happen. Oh, there you go. Gil is moving over.
Of sorts.
So, yeah, of sorts, yeah, as he's going into the pit lane. And I was about to say that I think that the pit window for those who are on the mediums who want to go into another set of mediums, like Gil is doing right now, that is open now, and Gil is using that to good effect. So maybe we are going to see some more drivers: Louis, Zach, Glock, Josh. I think for Midnight might be a bit early because he came in later than everyone else, same for Lakita and certainly Beast has. I think they might go out for at least one more lap. But for the top 3 and for Josh, this might be the time. If they want to go on to mediums, if they want to go on to softs, obviously they have to stick out a little bit longer there. But if they want to go on to mediums, I think now would be the time. That would explain the lap 3 pit stop from Louis.
It would make a lot more sense, and it might also explain Larkin's choice of tyres as well. Although, of course, he wouldn't have run the softs in race conditions, so he wouldn't have had that comparison to make. But maybe he just really enjoyed the mediums and decided he just wanted to do as few laps on the softs as possible. Like I say, either that or it's an error in strategy. But yeah, Louis and Josh, you would expect to be the next ones in because they were the ones who did pits very, very early the first time around. And Louis hasn't, I wouldn't say he hasn't had much pace in this stage of the race, but he's certainly had his mirrors full of that McLaren.
Yeah, he certainly did so far. Zach stays out. Meanwhile, Louis, he comes in. Took that line as well. Interesting there that he took a wider entry into the bus stop chicane to set himself up for the pit entry. That's the small little detail that if you pay attention, that's what you see the best of the best do. Whereas everyone else would just take the normal line, you know, and then, oh yeah, I need to pit. He sets himself up for the pit lane as if it was a part of the track, like everything else, and adjusts his line accordingly.
And Louis,
and he goes on to softs.
As does Josh, who pitted at the same time, so they're clearly a little bit more fonder of the softs than somebody was around him. I guess we'll find out in his last stint who's called it right. I think as well, unless my eyes deceive me, I think Glock almost was going to go in the pits himself, but then saw Louis did and sort of backed out of it, so a little bit of a strategic play going on there, but Glock has stayed out, and if my eyes weren't deceiving me, you'd imagine he'll be in this lap.
Yeah, most likely. I think, yeah, he also took a little bit of a wider entry, but not that much. Certainly not as much as Louis. And so it's kind of, it's a guessing game at this point. Was he actually trying to go in, or was he just sort of loosely following Louis' line? Ultimately, we won't know. But I would expect all of them. Zach, Glock, Midnight, Lakitu, Beast has maybe not yet, but everyone else to come into the pit lane pretty much this lap. And Zach is not taking that wider entry, but he goes into the pit lane. Glock follows in, so is Midnight. And Lakitu, will he make it 4? Nope. Lakitu will assume the lead of the race, but probably for only one lap.
Glock is a driver I'm going to keep an eye on here because I'm very interested to see where he rejoins, and I think he could potentially be under threat from Gil here, who's shown some very good pace since going back onto those mediums. He's only a second or so behind Louis, and well, just as I say that, he's done the fastest lap of the race, just to back up a point I was making. So if Glock's not careful here, yeah, so the Red Bull of Gil's already gone past, and in fact he's going to be under some threat here from Josh as well, so this hasn't worked out at all well for the McLaren driver, and yeah, Josh gets past him before Rouge.
Yeah, he also got before him before the DRS detection point, so that means Glock has the counter right here, right now. Josh is defenseless, has to go to the inside to try and cover him off, but Glock just flies past. However, Josh is keeping it in there, but what a move from Glock around the outside. What a great move right there. Oh, yellow flag, slash no. Inlay comb has lost it. Does he have damage? He does not. Let me look at our telemetry to confirm that quickly. Yes, no damage, thankfully.
I believe that's the second time he's had a moment and kind of got away with it. So that's good news for him. He's still in 10th spot at the moment. He will have another stop to make. But yeah, that's really helped. I think that's worked out best of all for Gil. He's up to what is provisionally 3rd place. And he's got out comfortably ahead of Glock. Glock's inlap must not have been very quick at all. Maybe it may have made more sense for Glock to pit when Louis did, after all.
Yeah, possibly, as Lakitu now comes in for his stop, and I think Beasthouse, yep, follows in, and so is Larkin. So the top three who haven't pitted yet are now in, and I expect Lakitu to be really close to Slash, unless Slash comes in, which he also didn't make his second stop yet. And yes, he indeed comes in. So expect all of the drivers who pitted now, Lakitu, Luck, and Beasthouse, to fall behind Midnight, etc. by a couple of seconds here. You see about 4 seconds, 4.5. Yeah, that's about right. And then Beasthouse another 3.5 seconds behind that. And Beasthouse actually really close here with Harry and has to defend right away. But Harry still has to pit as well. So Beasthouse, if I was Beasthouse, I'd try to stay ahead. Oh, there comes another one with Larkin. No, not Larkin. Who is that? Cliffy.
There's Cliffy right in the middle between Beasthouse and Harry. It looks like Harry's in the end sort of backed out and Beasthouse has kept taking place. Cliffy slots in between them and Larkin's decided he wants a bit of this as well. Incredible, really. They almost went 3 wide into the conveyor, but I think Harry quite sensibly realised there wasn't going to be enough space and slots in behind him. But now he's got Larkin right behind him. Of course, Harry been on those medium tyres now for 11 laps. I'm a little bit surprised he hasn't made a stop yet. Because I don't think anyone else has run the medium tyres for that long, so it's kind of showing really the age of his tyres, and he probably should think about pitting this lap. One other thing is, for me anyway, that's absolutely crucial now, is that for the first time this season, I would say, Louis isn't in the lead of this race, and all the stops have been made. If he wants to win this, he's going to have to pass Zach.
Yeah, and we saw on Twitter earlier with the insights. The One Up Racing Insights, if you want to check them out on twitter.com/OneUpRacing. Louis is one of 2 drivers who would have been able to equal the record set by 3 drivers in the last 10 seasons of 3 race wins in a row to start the season. One of them is Beasthouse, by the way. In season 10 he did that. And Louis is one of 2. Gus Freeing in the prospect tier already did that tonight. But for Louis, it looks like he won't be able to follow through with it.
It's going to be an exciting climax to the race. He's only 1.4 seconds behind Zach, so he definitely gained through pitting just that lap earlier. But with the way Zach's driven all race and the pace that he's got, it's going to be a tough ask now for Louis to find a way through. He may be relying on a small mistake from Zach, really. And of course, we've only now got 4.5 laps to go, so he's running out of time if he wants to make a move for the lead.
And to make matters worse, Louis has a 3-second time penalty as well. So, and Zach doesn't. So, either Zach gets a penalty as well and Louis overtakes him, or Louis is going to have to be content with P2 here tonight.
And of course, we've touched on with Zach, he is a real-life French F4 racer. You know, we bigged him up in France, and then ultimately it didn't quite go the way he'd hoped. But we're seeing from Zach here, right now, just how quick and good he really is.
Yeah, he did get the fastest lap point at least in France, but obviously he wanted much more. Qualified P4, finished P12. Now he got the fastest lap again. But this time in a much better position as well. This could be 26 points, and it could be a pole, fastest lap, and the win. Although the fastest lap now just got taken by Beasthouse, so this is going to be an interesting battle to look out for as well. But Zach looking really, really strong here, looking to take his first, not just his first One Hub points finish. So obviously he did get 1 point, but that was from P12 and the fastest lap. But his first proper points finish and his first win, his first podium, his first everything in One Hub.
That was a quite incredible 10 seconds we had there. First Zach did a 1:43.4, then Lakitu did a 1:43.4, and Beasthouse trumped them both with a 1:43.4. So it was quite an incredible moment there. Lakitu had literally 2 seconds to celebrate that fastest lap before it went away from him. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that benchmark lowered even more before the end. So it's going to be a fascinating finish just to see who gets that fastest lap point as well. Still with this battle for 4th place, which, well, 3rd place now actually, rather. as Gil is dropping into the clutches of those behind him. So, I don't know, maybe, you mentioned obviously the temperatures might be affecting the soft tyres, but maybe they're just sort of coming back towards the soft tyres in this latter part of the race.
Yeah, it seems like it has cooled down a little bit, and I just want to check the... No, according to our telemetry, the track temperature and air temperature are both still the same at 18 degrees in the air and 27 on track. So not much has changed in that regard, or nothing has changed really in that regard since we last talked about it. But yeah, it could be that maybe as the track gets grippier as well, because obviously as the cars drive over the track, more and more the track evolves, and especially with 14 cars on track still, that car just gets grippier and grippier with every lap. So maybe that's what's playing into it, and that's where the softs now finally get their moment to shine. And Glock into the back of Gil. That's not what he hoped for. Does he have damage? Let me check. According to telemetry, no. But I want to have a physical look. I want to see it with my own eyes. Yeah, he got away with that one, surprisingly.
That's a lucky escape there. I wonder if perhaps just a difference in tyres maybe caught him out into braking there. He did look quite late on the brakes. I was on board with him there, so... Yeah, Glock's a lucky one there for getting away without any damage, because that wasn't just a light hit. That was a pretty decent hit there. But he can still try and maintain his charge for P3. He's in a tough situation, of course, because he hasn't just got to look in front of him. He's got to be wary behind him as well. And I think that ultimately means you've got to sometimes be a little bit more careful when you go for the overtake, because you don't want to be passed while you're trying to do the passing.
Yeah, even more importantly for Glock, he's got 6 seconds of penalties. So for him, I think he's looking right now at Lakitu in P7, because that gap is just under 6 seconds, and Lakitu has no penalties. So that's who Glock wants to stay ahead of, and right now it's not working in his favor, but he needs to, if he gets a move on Gil, maybe he gets some clean air, able to drive away as Matt is in Pujon, apparently has spun. He's back on track now. No damage for that Mercedes. Yep, no damage for that car. But for Matt, an absolutely forgettable race weekend, or race Friday. And yeah, he'll most likely come home in P14. Slash now pits. I think he wants the fastest lap outside the top 10. He knows he has the gap, and he can afford that. So he wants to get another set of softs on. Harry did that lap before, same with Matt, so they're going for everything right now. Glock still behind Gil, and the gap to Lakitu in P7, who has no penalties, still under 6 seconds.
Taking Glock's penalties into account, really, the biggest thing that Gil will actually be loving the fact, he might not know it, but he'd be loving the fact that Glock's behind him at the moment, because if anything, it's stopping Josh from attacking Gil, because Josh gets very close to Glock coming up for a Rouge and Radion, but because Glock has DRS himself, there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, I think Gil knows very well that Glock has that penalty. The drivers can ask the in-game engineer, Jeff, about penalties of the car in front and the car behind, as Glock is trying to go for the move here into the bus stop.
And Midnight's going for it on Josh. This is incredible through the bus stop chicane. Glock stays behind Gil, and in fact Midnight has got past Josh, although they're still alongside each other as they go down to the source, but no. In fact, Josh gets back in front. I don't know if Midnight lifted off there. Yeah, I don't think. Okay, so Midnight maybe did something that he thought maybe didn't deserve a position, I don't know. But they'll go again up through.
It could be that Midnight, because Midnight knows he has 3 seconds worth of penalties. And he also knows, I'm pretty sure at this point, that Josh has no penalties. So maybe that's his thinking, as Glock now flies past the Red Bull of Gil. And this is what he needed on that final lap. Now he can try and pull a gap. The gap from Glock to Lakitu is now 5.3 seconds. That's because of all that battling. If Lakitu can pull 7/10 on that final lap on Lakitu in P7, he would at least get P6. Otherwise, he will lose another position there. to the Haas of Lakitu, but I think we have to go further up the road to see the other Haas of Zach coming into the final sector of the race.
He's done an absolutely incredible job. Louis always tried to keep him under as much pressure as possible, but ultimately Zach has just looked to have it all under control and has driven an absolutely expertly driven race today. Got a well-deserved pole position, although it was incredibly close between him and Louis. And ultimately he's just kept that few seconds in front to give him that leeway on strategy, and he comes around the bus stop chicane for the final time. A small lock-up, but it won't matter about that now. He heads to the line. That's a very, very great performance from Zach. He wins the One Hub Belgian Pinnacle Race Grand Prix, and Louis gets second place, of course, with that penalty, but he will comfortably hold on to second. Gil takes the final spot on the podium. Josh takes fourth. It's Lakitu who goes up into fifth, so Glock did not do enough in the end. Midnight in sixth. Glock takes seventh. Beastas is in eighth. Larkin is ninth, and Cliffy's just denied on penalties at the end. He still can't get his first point of the season, as Konzo in fact grabs 10th spot at the end, so both AlphaTauris squeak into the points.
Yeah, what a race. Ultimately, I think both Midnight and Glock got an additional penalty on the last lap, putting both of them behind Lakitu by quite a margin. It wouldn't have mattered for Glock. He would have been behind Lakitu by 7/10 anyway. But for Midnight, that cost him another position on the last lap. That is incredibly unfortunate for him. And yeah, ultimately cost him another position there.
And you absolutely called it as well at the end with Slash there, because I just saw a fastest lap from him pop up as he went across the line. So I think he actually got the fastest lap in total, not just outside the top 10, but that'll get him an extra point there. And that actually means that both McLarens have scored here today, so ending that miserable first couple of races they had. So I guess we now look to driver of the day then. Who would you say would be yours?
It's a good question. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'll leave you to the easy decision. I'm gonna say Josh. He qualified in P4, then got the penalty in qualifying that put him down 5 places, started P9, and still finished in P4. He gained 5 places over the course of the race. Had a really good result, really good race, a couple battles. And the question I would ask him is, what was his thought process as soon as he saw that penalty? As soon as he saw that he got a penalty in qualifying, what was he thinking? What was his strategy? How did it change?
Okay, that's an excellent question, and for me, you've left me to the easy decision. I'm going to have to go for Zach, and a really well-driven race. And my question would be to him would be, how did he mentally put himself back to a good place after what happened at Paul Ricard last week? How did he come into this race, treat it as a clean slate, and ultimately drive what I consider the perfect race in the end? You know, how did he get from the low point of France to the high here at Spa?
All right. Sounds good.
So that was absolutely cracking race from start to finish, and really close at the front, and congratulations to all the podium finishers there, to Zach, to Louis, and indeed to Gil. And yeah, really hope that you enjoyed that race. We will be back next week, same time, 8:30 p.m. for the Pinnacle tier. It will be at Monaco for round 4, so a very, very different challenge ahead for these drivers. Be sure to join us for that one, but from me and from Austin, it's good night, and we will see you next week.